This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our March Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm Mike Frieden, North Haven's first selectman, joined by our second selectman, Mr. William Piper, and our third selectwoman, Ms. Sally Boemi. Welcome to our meeting. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, it seems hard to believe that another year has gone by. It seems like yesterday the Girl Scouts were here at this meeting, and it's our distinct pleasure to be able to have everyone here tonight and to honor these fine young ladies here for all you do for Girl Scouts and all of, course, the Girl Scout leaders who supervise your activities. So tonight, I have a proclamation that I'd like to read, if that's okay. And here it goes. To honor Girl Scout Week, March 10th to March 16th, 2024, the movement, now known as Girl Scouts, began on March 12th, 1912, for those watching on TV, when Juliette Gordon Low, whose life mission was to build girls of courage, confidence, and character, she envisioned an organization that would prepare all young girls, regardless of their class, culture, or ethnic backgrounds, to be leaders in their communities. And she gathered 18 girls in Savannah, Georgia at that time. Girl Scouts, recognized as a national leader in providing the best leadership development experience in the world for girls, brings time-tested methods and research backed by programs that speak to the strengths of girl leadership development, backed by more than 100 years of experience and expertise in the field. Girl Scouts offers Girl Scout leadership experience that encourages girls to develop a strong sense of self, to connect to their respective communities, both locally and globally, and to have them feel empowered to make a difference in the world. Girl Scouts of America offers a hands-on, girl-led, girl-centered learning in STEM, the outdoors, and entrepreneurship. Additionally, it offers abundant opportunities to develop invaluable life skills, helping all girls take the lead early and often. The Girl Scout Gold Award is the highest honor that a Girl Scout can earn. It acknowledges each recipient's power and character and dedication to not only bettering herself, but also to make the world a better place for others. Juliette Gordon Low's legacy continues to have an extraordinary influence on the lives of millions of young girls across the country, as there are more than 59 million American women who are Girl Scout alumni and 2.6 million girls and adult volunteers are active members today. So tonight, to all the young girls and all the parents here and all the Girl Scout leaders, and to all those watching on North Haven TV, I, Michael J. Frieda, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the town charter and the town residents here in North Haven, do hereby, on behalf of our second selectman, Mr. William Piper, our third selectman, Ms. Sally Boemi, we do hereby applaud the commitment the Girl Scouts have made to support the leadership development of American girls, and we proudly proclaim March 10th through March 16th Girl Scout Week here in North Haven. It's our pleasure to have each and every one of you here this evening. And now, I'd like to come around and present this proclamation and have have Sally and Bill join us. Okay, ladies. Would like to take some pictures, we're up for that too. And this is this proclamation. Sophia. Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you. So who would like to take this, accept this proclamation? You want to take it? Okay, should we give it to her? Yeah, Sophia. Okay, Sophia. Tell them all. Okay. Sophia wants to take it home. So.
Well, we can ask when she asks Sophia's school will display it.
That's good.
But they'll put it on the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on the wall. Now, as far as that's concerned, in the back here, it's put it on the wall. Okay, so. Very good.
For coming.
Thank you for
Okay.
coming.
Girls, you want
Brownies, can you turn around?
Turn around.
Turn easy.
Randy.
I got Thin Mints, that's all I care about.
I'm happy with any Girl Scout that kind of thing.
Say Girl Scouts.
Girl Scout.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what you do. Randy, I'll see you in a few weeks, okay? So, Paula, always a pleasure. Take care.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sure.
We'll see if we can get it put up in his school.
Tell me you like things. Thank you. Okay, item number 3, any comments to public agenda?
There are? Oh, okay.
Quick, I know I sent you guys correspondence from the fire commission for when you get to the ordinance. I don't know, is that going to be read into the record, or is that?
Well, I think it's already in the record. Once you send something to, on a public access, it's already in the record, so, and I think it's going to be addressed tonight, so,
Okay,
Will
Okay.
be, yeah.
okay,
I don't-
because
I don't think it'll
otherwise
be
I can
read in
read it
its
from the
full.
fire commission on that item on the agenda.
Okay.
all right. If you'd like to read the letter, you certainly can when we get to that point,
Okay,
okay?
all right, great, thanks.
All right, very good.
Yeah,
All right,
I
yes,
had
go ahead,
just-
Sal. Yeah.
I had one comment relative to the agenda. We did get a request for an agenda item. It had to do with the AB Echo Park project. And a citizen wanted us to put something very specific on the agenda, and I noticed it's not here, and I support that decision. We have to be very careful as an administrative board what we put on the agenda. It has to be items that are within our powers under the charter and state statute. I think that we would be setting a bad precedent if we had allowed that particular agenda item. But the main reason is we here at the North Haven Board of Selectmen, and I've been here 11 years, we have a very progressive public comment section at the end of our meetings. We don't have a time limit. We don't limit public comment to items on the agenda, as many other agencies within the jurisdiction of the Freedom of Information Act do. They limit public comment either by duration or by topic. We allow any citizen to basically come and say what they want, ask what they want, and so I think that because of our very generous public comment philosophy, anyone who wants to speak about a topic or ask us questions can do so at that time. So I just wanted to say that you obviously made a decision not to put it on the agenda, and I support that for those reasons. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Item number 4, can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss negotiations with the dispatcher bargaining unit, which is Local 101, and our supervisors union, Local 818. Our town attorney is in the other room. And these are two contracts we have to wrap up. And tonight is the night that we decided to do this, go to executive session. So we got to get this done.
So I'll make that motion with, is it Town Attorney Ryan?
Yes.
With the Town Attorney Ryan in with us.
Could you also include, please, Rich Monaco?
Oh, and in addition to Council Ryan, we will invite Rich Monaco to attend in the executive session as well.
We have a motion.
So that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Director of Finance. I'll second that motion.
All right. Motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're out of executive session. We're going to move to item number 5 on this agenda for this evening. So Sally and Bill, I'll let you read number 5, Sally, and number 6, Bill.
Okay. So I will make a motion that we vote to approve the negotiated agreement with the dispatcher bargaining unit, Local 101.
Okay.
I'll second that vote to approve the agreement.
All right. So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill, item number 6.
And then I'll motion for a vote to approve the negotiated agreement with the Supervisors Union Local 818.
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Vote, motion passes. Sally, would you like to read 8?
I think we're on
7, I'm sorry, 7.
I'll make a motion for the approval of the Board of Selectmen's meeting minutes for the February 1st, 2024 meeting.
I'll second those minutes.
All right.
Approval of those minutes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll make a motion for the approval of the minutes of the Special Board of Selectmen's meeting of February 15th, 2024.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to direct your attention to the screens and those watching on North Haven TV, some of the things that I've been up to lately. And this is an overview that's going to focus in on some of the economic development projects in town, the challenges, the opportunities, and the successes. There are a lot of challenges. Trader Joe's, as an example, was one. We had them, we thought, almost to the finish line, but they backed out. So we have to direct our now attention to other challenges, and I'll share some of those with you, show you the opportunities, and then talk about some of the successes. So let's take a look at the current state of economic development here in the town of North Haven. These are the projects that I'm involved with. If we were to imagine that we're on a bus together and we're driving around the town right now, let's start with some of the challenges that I'm faced with around the town on trying to bring projects forward. The former Rite Aid down in the Monowee section has been vacant now for quite some time. This is a drug chain that has closed stores all over the country. So some people might be wondering why it's still vacant. I've had more businesses that want to go there, but the owner of the building, they're not located in North Haven, they're still receiving approximately $7,000 a month from Rite Aid even though Rite Aid went out of business. What happens in some of these projects is that when a store closes, like particularly a chain like that, they're still obligated to pay the lease that they were part of. So when we look at this, the owner who lives or who are operating well outside of Connecticut, there's not a lot of motivation because they're still collecting the same amount of money per month. So what I try to do, we had a Dollar General that wants to go there, putting opportunities in front of them to try to buy out the lease. I don't have the final say on that. So we've got to continue to push to put opportunities in front of that owner so that we can get out from under having an empty building down there in the Monterey section. That's what's happening at the former Rite Aid. This is another tremendous challenge. Years ago, we had a project there, but the residents came out against it because it involved a package store at that time, in addition to an office complex. We've had a Dunkin' Donuts that wants to go there, but that is something that the residents in the area don't want because of traffic concerns on Montewiese Avenue and Quinnipiac Avenue. So when you drive by there, you'll see the owner is listing this, and he's listing it as suit to build or lease to buy or whatever it might be. But nonetheless, we're still stuck with this issue down there. We've had people come in to buy the whole corner, but what we're faced with sometimes is the issue of the price between the buyer and the seller. What I try to do is put the opportunities in front of the owners of these buildings. But then in the end, it's between the buyer and the seller to determine if they're willing to pay the price that the seller wants. This is another problem and a challenge. This is a challenge because somebody owns this, but the person who owns this wants to put a car dealership there. Can't put a car dealership there. Not enough space. So what I'm trying to do is convince the owner we can bring in people that either want to lease the building or want to buy the building to try to get a positive outcome going here. So the former Sips Cafe, the reason it's empty is that the owner of this building owns property all over Connecticut, so it's sort of a land bank. So where I come into play is to continue to nudge the owner to say, I've got this opportunity for you. I'd like to introduce you to this potential buyer. I have someone here that wants to lease this property from you. So I'm constantly pushing on these types of challenges. This former town fair is another challenge. This is a challenge because most residents don't know that Stop and Shop doesn't own that south side of that complex. That's another owner who has no motivation to do anything, ladies and gentlemen. So when we see the empty town fair tire, I've got someone that wants to buy the south side of the plaza, but the owner doesn't want to sell. The group I have that wants to buy it, from all my contacts all over the state of Connecticut, I can bring a lot of people here, and I have. But if the seller doesn't want to sell, it then becomes out of the town's authority to do anything. This is another project I'm involved with, the south side of Amazon. So this, I'm hoping that sometime later this year we'll see something go there. And that's on the south side of the driveway driving northbound. Let's say that's about 3 acres, so it won't be a big project, but something will go there. Let's take a look now. Those are many of the challenges I'm faced with. And for those watching that don't know, we don't have an economic development director here. I'm the economic development director. So these are all projects individually that I'm personally involved with. The opportunities. Well, in the North Haven Shopping Center, I've spent a lot of time with the owners of Portofino, and we're going to be bringing a new restaurant there. It's about 6,700 square feet. The name will be Volo, and it's a restaurant that's going to go to the south side of the Agency on Aging. So the owner and I now are working on something new and unique for North Haven that's not a replication of what we may see with other restaurants. So we'll stay tuned to the menu and the format there. This restaurant will have a main dining room, and it'll have an upstairs format for banquets. There'll be about 225 people that could sit up top there for activities in addition to the actual restaurant. This former Donato's, this is where we thought we'd have the Trader Joe's going. I did work with the fairgrounds to try to negotiate some more space. The owner of this building and I have worked closely together for years, but we weren't able to deliver Trader Joe's. So we have other opportunities here. We get a lot of requests for specific restaurants, and right now I'm working with the owner here. This is why this is an opportunity. If this was a year ago, this would still be a challenge. So we're going to be presenting something that the owner of that building already likes. Now I'm calling for a meeting with the fairgrounds to try to see what we can do on the parking lot, because the fairgrounds owns the parking lot, and there's a separate owner for that building there. And just so you know, the reason this has not been torn down is that if it got torn down, we lose the designation of a restaurant there, because the town zoning laws are such that in this particular facility, if that gets knocked down, can't put a restaurant there. So we decided to deal with the pain of having a dilapidated building still standing so that we can maintain the fact that Mike Frieda can eventually get a restaurant there or a retail store. 200 Valley Service Road. 74.5% of Valley Service Road is a national flood zone. However, I found two developers, both of whom I'm working very closely with. This particular segment right across the street from the old only game in town, we've got a very exciting development project going on here right now. I can't really say publicly because there's some confidentiality, but this will be a home run in North Haven if this goes through. I've introduced the owner to a prospective organization that will lease the property, so we'll see where this goes. 400 Valley Service Road, right down the road, is another example. Working with a great company. We've become close in the sense that we bounce ideas off each other, so we're going to have something going here. I see this more of an industrial development, perhaps a huge, large Butler building with 2 or 3 maybe contractors going there. So these two projects, these were vacant properties for decades. On the north side of Amazon, this would have been a challenge last year or maybe even 6 months ago, but I've got a lot of interest on this right now. People that own this are an investment company out of New York. We've got a developer that wants to come in and develop that, so I'm in the process of making those connections. 102 Quinnipiac Avenue. For those people in the Monowee section, I'm happy to report that after about 25 years of this, we found someone to buy it. They'll tear that down, and that's going to be a 2,200 square foot little mini mart that'll serve things like breakfast sandwiches, probably pizza slices at lunch, and there'll be maybe 4 gas pumps in the front. Now, down through the years, I've had a Subway that wanted to go there, Dunkin' Donuts, a Starbucks, but because it's in the middle of 2 state roads, you can't have one of those type restaurants without having a drive-through, and you need 14 cars backed up on the site itself. Can't have spillover in the street, or else they can't go there, and that's what's happened. Because if we had, let's say, a Starbucks that went there, you could never get a 14-car queue backup at the panel and a drive-through. So that's why that's been vacant, because everything we tried to do in the past has wanted a drive-through. But that's going to be a positive outcome, ladies and gentlemen. But there is a signpost that says great success ahead. Let's take a look at some of the recent successes. This is still on track to open up later in the year. Brand new A&M Bronx Bakery, a manufacturer of bread in particular that sells to restaurants all over the country, including airports. And the owner and I are working on a retail component to sell fresh bread and fresh bakery products there. A&M Bronx Bakery. Stay tuned for that. It's moving along nicely. 336 State Street. This was a dilapidated building. I previously had mentioned we got Golf Cove in there. Been down there with the owners a cut the ribbons, been to events there with Channel 8 News. We have a law firm that's in the front right next door, and in the back, a new business called Auto Motivated. So the owners of this building have been great to work with, 336 State Street. Over on 8 Divine, we opened up in conjunction with the relationships that we have with Yale Healthcare and Gaylord in a collaborative set of circumstances. Myself, Yale Healthcare executives, Gaylord executives. We opened this up. This is a major gastrointestinal type of destination for people who have those gastrointestinal type of problems. That's on 8 Divine Street. This is me at a ribbon cutting at 178 State. That business was gone and new wholesome pool and spa came in. So that's at 178 State Street. You've heard all the publicity about abates. Lou Abate, even though the restaurant is Abate, Lou Abate and I spent a lot of time on this after his restaurant burnt down on Worcester Street. So I was there recently. The Channel 8 was there. He's very happy there. So we get a lot of people who say that it's nice to have another pizza place here in North Haven. But they not only offer pizza on their menu, there's all types of delicacies on that menu. So, and still, a lot of people who used to go here on Worcester Street come out to North Haven to go to Abate's here. So that's been a success. After the introduction of Chick-fil-A here several years ago, we had 2 empty spots there. We finally completed Panera Bread late last year. I talked to the general manager of Panera Bread, oversees Panera Breads along the East Coast. It's one of the highest performing Panera Breads, the one here in North Haven. It's got takeout, drive-through, call ahead, order, go in, take out, and then a restaurant series of seats in there. Very well, tastefully done. A lot of people like it. So I'm happy to report that after all this COVID and all of the banks that did not want to fund and capitalize hotels, that Mr. Patel and I and his management team will be down there next week in an official groundbreaking ceremony for the Hampton Inn on Universal Drive. So that will complete the 3-pad format over on Universal Drive. And what started this development was years ago when we brought Cinemark here in town. Home Goods, this has already been reported, but this is something that the residents of North Haven are very happy with. So it's always packed in there. People love it, and that filled out that space after DSW left. Over at 150 Universal Drive, this has been almost a regional sensation. Legends Auto Boutique, tied into refurbishing high-end cars, offering quality high-end type of headlights, interior designs, steering wheel designs. When they run an event, and I've been to several of them, we have North Haven Police there regulating traffic, whom they pay for. They pay for the overtime for the police because we get people coming in from New York to go to this location at 150 Universal Drive. So that was an empty, beat-up, dilapidated building. Well, I mentioned earlier about the Stop and Shop Plaza. So finally, we broke a little bit of ground. We broke the ground because this was Stop and Shop's space. So for years, you know, people would say, hey, Mr. Frieda, hey, Mike, you know, can we get something for the young kids? Well, Just Tumble has been a remarkable success so far. 11,000 square feet that was empty, right next to Stop and Shop on the south side. And when you go in there, and I've been in there, cut the ribbon, I've visited them, it's very nice to see young girls, young boys, middle school girls and boys, teenage girls and boys doing these tumble-type recreation activities. And it's been a nice addition over there.
Nobody our age, though, right?
But when I went, they wanted me to do a split in there because they know I can still do splits. So, but that's a whole nother story. So
I'm glad you can do that, but I definitely.
School of Rock. There was a nonprofit that went out of business here called Heart. I actually went to the president's retirement dinner, but that was empty for a while. So this is a music school. Now, I went there for the opening, and it rocked, no pun intended. The inside of this location, what they did in terms of retrofitting it, the young kids, the teenagers, those that are interested in music and the arts, is packed in there. So I was happy to see that. The Flower Nook, that opened up a few months ago. That's over in the plaza that is next door to the restaurant that I just showed earlier, the Volo. This is in the Arnold's Jewelers, Save Right Plaza over in the North Haven Shopping Center. And that owner, Joe Maruzzi, he's been great to work with. We worked so closely down through the years. If you were to flash back 4 or 5 years ago, that was a beat-up, dilapidated plaza here in North Haven. Now, once the restaurant goes in, it's going to be fully occupied. Of course, this already we spoke about, but the reason I have this here is this was also an empty parcel of property for years. The owners of this plaza are the same people that I've been working closely with for the restaurant, that Volo restaurant. Portofino's DeLucia family owns this, and I'm very close with them. They built this. You see that empty spot there, ladies and gentlemen? So we thought we were going to get a Ben & Jerry's there, but at the end, they backed out. Kind of a seasonal type business, big in the summertime. Ben & Jerry's was once part of Unilever, one of my corporate clients when I was CEO of my company. So I know what Unilever does in terms of building brands. So now, based on the success of the Jersey Mike's down at Universal Drive, we have another Jersey Mike franchise that wants to open up on the north side of North Haven. So Jersey Mike's is going into that spot. And that'll fill that location. Over at 323 Washington Avenue, this is kind of a replacement. Sylvia's Pastry, for whatever the reasons, didn't make it, Sylvia's Bakery. So we have this Grace's Candy and Company that's coming very soon at 323 Washington Avenue. And they just opened up. That's right, 'cause in fact, I just got invited to the opening. Now, 575 Washington Avenue, this was the old produce store. So went out of business. They didn't go out of business. They moved years ago. They moved because they wanted to upgrade that building. But they didn't want to put the money in because they weren't going to own the building. And the landlord wasn't going to be collaborating as well as they wanted. So we had an empty building there for maybe, let's say, 6 years. We have an Elite Limousine Company going in there. And that's the name of it, Elite Limousine. 575 Washington Avenue. And when I first started getting involved with this, I had flashbacks. Flashbacks I had when I was in my corporate business career, flying into Chicago or Dallas or San Francisco, and having one of these type cars pick me up. So that from the airport to the hotel was a great, relaxing ride. You can do work, get things done. There are a lot of executives, like I was back then, that prefer this than taking a cab to try to deal with the bumps and do all that when you go from the airport to the hotel. So this has been, so far, a very good success story. I was with the CEO of Connex last week. He gave me a tour before we actually opened this up. This is the old Fantasia that went out of business. And for those who wonder why they went out of business, COVID wrecked the banquet industry. And those fine people were aging out. They asked me if I could find a buyer for them. We did, the people next door. And that is now going to be opening. It is open, and I'll be going there for the ribbon cutting, I think, next week. And in the back, to fulfill the planning and zoning ruling back then, that completes the apartments on the east side of Washington Avenue, 88 apartments going there and back to the Connex. 445 and 447 Washington Avenue. The front building is basically just all leased out right now. We've got postgraduate students there that are part of the Quinnipiac Medical School, Law School. We have young professionals graduating from college who can't buy a house because of college debt. We've got some nurses that have moved in there, some pharmacists that have moved in there right out of school. So with this housing crisis across the state of Connecticut, this seems to be a point of entry for those young professionals so that they can maybe build some of their own equity financially to eventually buy a home. And right now, people really like this who live there. A couple of industrial type sites, Northeast Sign Company on 27 Dodge Avenue. They're up and running. This is a company that I worked with from another city who called me. They had been in business for 50 years in my hometown where I grew up. And I spent a lot of time with this company here. We put them in 12,000 square feet over at 57 Dodge Avenue. And you may have noticed this. La Fresca sold. Big Y was one of my customers in my other career. And in Western Massachusetts, they have these Big Y Expresses. So they want a point of entry in Connecticut for Big Y Express. So this will open up shortly. Big Y has taken this over. Store on the inside, gas component on the outside. Morrow Motors, I happened to see and be with Mike Morrow about a month or so ago, and you know, I had previously reported a 15,000 square foot expansion there. Now there's another 7,000 square feet on top of that 15,000. And I always say that we want existing businesses here in North Haven to expand. And this fine car dealership is a good example of that here. This here was the former Asian Fusion, and they did a great job. They didn't want to leave, but they got tired. This is what the owner told me. They couldn't get help. They couldn't get waitresses. They couldn't get servers. So they got out. Now, the gentleman here who now has opened this, it's called Major Luxury Suites. It's a high-end men's barbershop and a high-end women's hair salon. This gentleman here is a Instagram sensation. He posted a picture of him and I on Instagram. The whole Instagram lit up. It blew up. Not because of me, because of him. He's got like 100,000 followers. So this is going to be a nice addition in the Monterey section. And one of the goals I have in the Monterey section is to clean up some of these empty and dilapidated buildings. But it's tricky because the businesses that want to go there, we also have to represent the residents' needs and wants also, for whatever the reason, traffic issues or whatever. I'll leave you with this. So recently, I want to share this with everybody. I've just been appointed to a variety of different boards and commissions. Some of these meet monthly, some meet quarterly, but I'll take you through it. So I've just been reappointed as the co-chair of the State Rail Advisory Committee. And the reason I'm involved with this, because it gives me an inside view, an inside hand in determining if we're going to get this train station here in North Haven. That already $6 million has been spent, but the construction dollars have not been allocated. So being co-chair of this committee, I bring people from the DOT in, the commissioner of DOT, economic development people from all over the state of Connecticut. So tomorrow morning I have a meeting on this as that co-chair. I've just been appointed chairman of the State Veterans Grave Upkeep Working Group. This is a task force. I got involved with this because I support the veterans in town. And what we're seeing all over Connecticut is veterans' graves are in disarray. Groundstones are sunk, grass over the groundstones, stones themselves in disarray. So I have a committee as chairman of 7 people from all over the state. Some of them, 2 of them, oversee cemeteries across the state. So our job here is to make recommendations to the General Assembly how we can keep the respect for our veterans by not having their grave sites and their stones be invisible over the course of time. This, I've been appointed also, a statewide task force with 6 other mayors across the state. We're trying to find solutions to rising tip fees. And our job here is to make recommendations to the General Assembly on how to do things like EBR. A lot of people don't know what that means, but what that means is taking heavy components out of our municipal waste, trying to find solutions for separating food waste, which is very heavy, from normal municipal waste, trying to figure out a solution for glass. A lot of people put it in their actual trash without recycling it. Cardboard becomes very heavy. So our job here is to make recommendations on this. For North Haven, what this means is, now again, I'm on the inside here. Now I'm able to make recommendations as a member of this task force, because our tip fees in North Haven have probably grown. They're probably about $500,000 more than what they should be. And that's very important to us from a budgetary standpoint. So I sit here with various mayors from all over the state. I've just been named Vice President of Cost, which is the Council of Small Towns. That's defined by towns of 30,000 population and under. Now, you might say, why are you doing that? Well, I'll give you a good example. I had the governor, we had the president of the Senate, the minority leader of the House. We hosted at the AquaTurf a session that the municipal officials could ask questions. And Governor Lamont and Marty Looney, Vin Candelora. We've had Sean Scanlon there, who I was just with yesterday up at the Capitol. So what this does is it gives us an inside view. So I'm representing North Haven here now as Vice President. It keeps North Haven on the map statewide to be a viable player and a strong municipality recognized by all of the leaders of the state of Connecticut. I'm also chairman of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the whole greater New Haven region. I head up all the economic development. I have a large committee, so they do all the work, but I chair this committee to make sure that if we have development projects that want to come into a city or town, but there's no space for them, we want them to remain in the region. We don't want them to go out of state. So that's one of my roles there. And just yesterday, this is another very important topic. There's 119,000 kids, teenagers in the state of Connecticut who are disenfranchised, who aren't graduating from school, who aren't going into the trades, and they're lost and they have no focus and direction. So we did a press conference at the Capitol yesterday. I'm now a commissioner on this. We meet once a month. Our job here, this commission will sunset. It'll end in September. So our job here is to make recommendations to create solutions for those young men and women defined by age 13 to 19 who are going off track and have no sense of direction in our communities. The reason I got asked to do this, because a year and a half ago I had dinner with Barbara Dalio from the Dalio Foundation, with the mayor of Waterbury, the mayor of Middletown, mayor of New Britain, and the mayor of New Haven. And we had a very poignant discussion about this problem. So I agreed to do this because even in North Haven, believe it or not, we have a lot of kids who are going off track. So once again, I agreed to do this. I was asked so that I have an inside view on how we help our kids here in North Haven. So that's another recent appointment. Press conference was yesterday. So I'm going to end with this. Some very important dates. Wednesday, March 20th, Board of Finance meeting to address the budget, help come to some kind of conclusion as to where we're going to end up. Friday, March 22nd, budget books will be available either online or at the town clerk's office. And then Tuesday, April 9th, the budget hearing at 7 p.m. at North Haven High School. This, ladies and gentlemen, has been a difficult budget. So you're going to see me get up there in a very candid fashion, talking directly to each and every North Haven resident about what these challenges are this year. So these are key dates. We want everyone to attend. Wednesday, April 17th, 6:30, Board of Finance, final budget. Friday, April 26th, budget books, revised budget books, available, town clerk, online. Monday, May 13th, the annual budget meeting, 7 p.m. at the North Haven High School. Tuesday, May 21st, referendum. all voting at the rec center. Very important dates for everyone to remember. Thank you very much for listening.
I have a comment on,
Of course.
a couple of comments on your overview, your very extensive and informative overview. First, regarding down in Monowese, at the corner of Quinnipiac and Monowese, where you said a Dunkin' Donuts was proposed, a package store was proposed, and everything was objected to because of traffic. Now, this is just a few doors down from my office, and I think you should tell the economic development director, oh, that's you, that maybe we have to look at the traffic on Monowese Avenue between Quinnipiac and exit 9, because it's, especially at certain times of day, it's a nightmare. Because when you turn right from Quinnipiac, if you're heading south, and you turn right onto Monowese from
Yep.
Quinnipiac, it's one lane for quite a while, and some people kind of cheat and go over the lane to try to get in. It separates later, the two lanes. And it's very difficult to get in or out of some of the businesses that are there.
Yeah.
There's nail salons there, there's law offices there. So if you keep having folks that are interested in developing the site and the residents are putting the kibosh on it because of traffic concerns, it would behoove you to look into improving the traffic, either extending that half lane and something has to be done with that intersection, because not only is it feeding exit 9, but it's also feeding to Universal Drive, and as you've said, there's a lot more development on Universal Drive. So I think that the traffic on Monowese is a big problem for that particular location.
Yeah, part of that problem, and I've had the DOT in this very room, because they
Okay.
own a certain portion of that that is surrounded by the overpass in 91.
Right?
So that traffic light sometimes needs to be recalibrated. So our police can't do that. So, as an example, coming the other way, these are some of the many things I'm involved with, folks, in this government. It's coming the other way. If we're in a car, Sally, you, myself, and Bill, and we're coming, let's say, from at home, right? And we
Okay.
want to get on 91 North, right? That intersection is totally jammed up. So you got an industrial area with Sims Metal Management. Now, the general manager and I, we work very closely together there. He can't get his trucks out going that way. So we had the DOT in here, and I proposed extending the green arrow that takes everybody out to 91 North, because it only was 10 seconds. Coming around, or you can certainly go straight on Monowese to Quinnipiac, but a lot of the jam up was the cars backed up in a queue because the green arrow is only 10 seconds.
To get on 91
Go
North.
to 91 North.
So, yeah, that's
So
a tough turn.
Clear that out. So
Yeah.
they added some seconds, but not enough seconds for my liking, I can say that, so.
Well, I mean, that's the first thing that, it's a real problem down there.
It is.
With traffic, so.
Okay.
And I was also very interested in your many appointments. The committee, the last one you talked about, the Committee for Disenfranchised Youth, you said that the group meets to make recommendations. To who? To the legislature? To who are you making recommendations
So
to for solutions to this issue?
the Dalio Foundation is funding a lot of it, so it'll be a combination of the Dalio Foundation and to the state legislative body in terms of.
To the legislature?
Right,
Okay.
yep.
I was just wondering. Okay, thank you. And you do a good service for many of these businesses. I mean, you're talking menus, you're talking limousines. They're getting a lot of free publicity here. Let's charge for the time. No, it's good. It's good for business, but they're getting some very good advertising here, and that's very important it not only shows enthusiasm for the entire town to promote other development,
Yep.
but it's a helping hand for those that have made the investment in our town. So I think it's a good thing
Well,
that you
thanks. Yeah.
advertise for them like that.
Valerie sees it every day, and she'll say, all these people, they want to meet with Mike, they want to talk to Mike, right, Val?
Yes,
And that becomes a challenge after a while.
it is.
We
And,
are always at all these meetings and ribbon cutting, so I don't know how they have time to meet with you.
All right, very good.
But
All right.
thank you for the overview. It was very informative.
All right. Okay, so we'll,
And some of your comments too, Mike, indicate, I think is, you know, and I think you can't emphasize it enough, that it's important to support businesses in North Haven. Because, you know, we have so many good businesses and, you know, like you mentioned Formosa, you know, with all the, you know, for all the years that I went there, you know, which is the successor to the Amber, you know, the barbecue rib place. Yeah, it was a great restaurant. The owners were wonderful. The food was great, and it's almost a shame to lose that. But, you know, I think we've continued to bring in new restaurants, and as we've brought new restaurants into town, we want to support them as much as we can, because we don't want to lose them. We want to keep them.
that's a good segue, Mr. Piper, because I just want everyone to know that we talked about the veterans before. And for those that don't know, Bill Piper retired as a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. So that status of lieutenant colonel is over a major and just under a colonel. So we've got a lot going on with the veterans in town. So we put Bill on the agenda tonight so he could take everyone through, including the veterans who may be watching, what he's doing to help the veterans. Bill?
Thank you, Mike. The state of Connecticut requires, which I think is a great idea, that every municipality has a municipal veterans representative, which is what I am for the town of North Haven. And that serves, I think, an important local purpose, a local contact purpose, to have somebody locally a veteran can call if he has questions, who can then maybe get him to the right place, and the right people who can maybe help him if I can't help him. But at least it's a starting point and gives us, gives our residents, and if somebody called me from Hamden or Wallingford, I would definitely help them as well. And since I've retired over, a few years ago, and actually a little bit before that, I've also become more involved with the American Legion. And actually, for our American Legion post next door, I'm also the service officer there, and fulfill a similar role for the post. So if somebody calls the post and is looking for maybe some help regarding benefits or dealing with the VA, it might come in to be from that direction. So it's really an opportunity, not that I know everything or, that my prior experiences, give me a complete understanding of everything's out there, because there's a lot out there. And, and quite often you don't know what you need or what you want until you maybe look. The good thing about Connecticut, and I'm not sure how, when I've actually talked on occasion even to people from other states, I'm talking to a gentleman in Colorado, and he did not know, and as I did some research online, they very much like Connecticut actually have a Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs. And that actually is the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs, which actually provides training to me and the other municipalities as a municipal veterans representative. So, if I need to go someplace or need to send somebody to a place and they need some help, I can obviously maybe get them some, give them some background, give them some information based on my own personal experiences or helping other people maybe with dealing with the VA. But I don't have the level of expertise that maybe the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs does. And what's interesting is that there's actually an office, make sure I actually use the right terminology. Should have actually maybe done a slide, I'm sorry. But this may be just an informational one, and maybe we'll actually do more in the future. But there's an Office of Advocacy and Assistance, at the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs. And, that department is, and I'll read right from their brochure, the Office of Advocacy and Assistance of the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs helps veterans, their eligible spouses, and dependents in obtaining veterans benefits under federal, state, local laws. They employ certified veteran service officers who actually, are employed by the state within each congressional district to perform the following. And our congressional district is, I think as many of you know, is the 3rd congressional district. And the office for our advocate for Veterans Affairs that's part of the Department of Veterans Affairs is in Milford. So I've definitely sent a few people to that location to work with them, regarding, much more complicated things than I might have any firsthand ability to do other than give people general information. But that office represents veterans before the Department of Veterans Affairs concerning claims and benefits, provides community outreach at senior centers, nursing home, civic and government events. I've seen them at fairs, actually set up a booth or whatever to help veterans in conjunction with the VA. Assist with gathering, preparing, and presenting claims pursuant to rights or benefits accruing to veterans. Connect with veterans with local services to include educational training, health and medical services, housing facilities, employment service, and collect and prepare data relating to benefits for veterans and spouses. So, there is, I'm a point of contact. There are advocates for veterans that are part of the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs that can actually help people at the VA if they need it. And there are also people at the VA who've been very helpful on many occasions. But like many things in terms of government, especially at the federal government, things are not, things are always complicated, especially if you're applying for disability. There's an act actually that went into effect, completely into effect, I think today or tomorrow, the PAC Act, which really extends medical benefits and for people who have served really post-Vietnam in the Middle East and Afghanistan. And I think a lot of you know that a number of veterans, just like Agent Orange was an issue for Vietnam veterans in terms of all the medical problems that created. But the biggest problem in terms of maybe the Middle East and other places post 9/11 that people have deployed have been things like burn pits, which have been toxic and created all kinds of problems. So, so I'm a resource who can get maybe people to other resources. Other things that we have in Connecticut, we have, if I look at, to actually give you a correct description, here we are. I think a lot of us who are veterans are familiar with that we have a veteran cemetery in Middletown that, as a veteran, and our spouses as veterans would have the ability to actually to be buried in the veteran cemetery in Middletown, have a headstone and everything. The Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs coordinates that. Up at Rocky Hill, they have residential programs and services, which include temporary family housing, maybe for veterans that are having maybe issues with homelessness. They have a healthcare center that's for skilled nursing, and then they have a residential facility for older veterans that, again, maybe don't have any specific place to go. So, so I think we're lucky to have, all these different services available through the state, and also to have from at least what I've been told, and I've visited it, and I brought my father there as a veteran. I thought he got excellent health care from our veterans facility, medical facility in West Haven. So the purpose today is just to kind of mention some of these things and make everybody aware of the fact that I am a point of contact, and the way to get, probably the easiest way to get to me is the same way that everybody gets to a lot of things done in town is to call Val and or Tammy at Mike's office, leave a message, And I'll definitely call a veteran back and do my best to help.
Very good, Bill. Very good.
So thank you, and, and it's actually, I think we're all familiar with like the veterans tax exemption that we have in town, through the assessor's office. So this is really a lot of other things that are available to support, I think increasingly to support veterans. So it's a good, it's a good little extra duty for me to do, and I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than glad to. And again, just like with the American Legion post, we would not. If somebody calls me from another town, you have a friend who I helped this person from Colorado to try to get him on. I've helped a person in Florida. So I think it's just veterans. I'm a veteran. I want to do my best, just like I think everybody here, even if you're not a veteran, and I know Sally's had Sally and I've talked on many occasions about her father and his service to our country. I think we all would do whatever we can because I know we all appreciate, what we've all done collectively in terms of ourselves or our families in terms of service for our country. So.
Good job.
That's just a quick rundown.
Good job.
Yep, thanks, Bill. One thing to think about, I tried to call Val today, and I got a recording saying, due to the high volume of calls, leave a message and we'll get back to you. Is there a way you could put on the website his town email address? As, identified specifically for veterans to...
Bill and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
Maybe, and actually, it's easier said than done. On the Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs site, you can go into their site and actually find my personal cell phone number and email. But it's easier said than done. Once you get into the site, I think it lists every town in the or municipality in the state. You got to work your way down alphabetically to North Haven. So.
Right. Well, just as a way for North Haven veterans, maybe to go on the website and contact you directly by email to help. I'm sure they could call also, but to help alleviate the phone calls.
They can call, and you didn't leave a message, or I would have called you back.
I emailed you instead, and you emailed me back.
I did, okay.
Okay.
So we did connect. I
We
don't
did.
want people to think that
No,
we
no,
didn't
I
connect.
wasn't saying that because we connect all the time.
Okay.
But there is that recording, because sometimes you and Tammy are both on the phone and you
That's
get that
correct.
recording.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to think of a way to
Yeah.
lessen that
will.
burden with
Thank you.
perhaps a
Thank you.
email connection on the
Michelle and
website.
I've kind of talked about
Yeah.
actually
Okay.
even
We
having
will get to that shortly.
having a veteran site with links and everything.
Right.
Yep.
Well, great job, Bill. You know how strongly I feel about helping veterans. So we are on number 11.
Go right ahead, Sally.
I will. Make a motion for the appointment of Luigi, really? Luigi, see, I'm gonna have to call him Luigi now. Appointment of Luigi Lou Capola, 27 Maple Avenue, to the Community Services Commission to fill the unexpired term of Lori Reynolds, term to expire December 31st, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second Lou's appointment.
In the discussion, Lori Reynolds moved back to West Haven, and Lou, of course, is with our CERT team, so he stepped up. Good position for Lou, so
Yeah.
call
I
for the
agree.
vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next. Item
Next,
12.
number 12, we're going to have a discussion, I think this is our third month
Yes.
in a row, a discussion concerning a proposed ordinance to provide a tax abatement for surviving spouses of firefighters and police officers who died while in the line of duty. For those of you who've been watching our meetings, we have been discussing this for several meetings. It's a very important topic for all three of us here on the board. And this ordinance is pursuant to a very specific state statute, 12-81X. Just to remind you what it says, I made copies for you guys. because we are in this proposed ordinance, of course, it has to go before a town meeting for approval. But what we're proposing in this town ordinance is a tax abatement, which is basically the forgiveness of real estate taxes. And those are rare. So you can only do it when you have a very specific authority to do so, and that is by state statute, which allows the legislative body of any municipality to establish by ordinance a program to abate all or a portion of property taxes due for the surviving spouse of a police officer or firefighter who dies while in the performance of such officer firefighter's duties. So we have to, for once, we have a very short and very clear statute. In recent months, we've had some unclear statutes that we've dealt with, right? So this one's pretty clear that, of course, it has to relate to the performance of officers' duties. And we had a sample first draft that was presented to us by town council Jeff D'Onofrio back in January, which was very similar, almost word for word, to an ordinance already adopted by the town of Groton. And then we discussed it, made some changes, had another draft, and then we talked about it again, and now we have our third draft here tonight. So I think we have to, before we go any further, we have to acknowledge that we did get an email from one of the commissioners of the Fire Commission with a letter questioning some of our decisions. So do we want to make a motion to allow discussion from the writer of that? I will make a motion to allow comment at this time, only related to this ordinance. It's not public, the general open public comment.
Yes. Okay, I'm fine with that. So we have a motion. Bill, second?
I'll second that.
All right, and just before we bring up the author of this, we've also included in your packet some other additional research we've done from other cities and towns on this.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so-
I've looked at quite a few of different ordinances. As you know, I cited quite a few: Greenwich, Groton, East Hampton, Cromwell, other municipalities, which is something that is very often done when you're dealing with a new ordinance. You look at what other towns have done.
Yes.
So that's very helpful to have, yes.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second, and we've concluded the discussion. So we're going to allow and have the author,
Yes,
Ms.
Jenny
Caldwell,
Caldwell.
come up and read your letter in public.
Thank you, and I just want to be clear, I emailed it to you, but this letter is not from me, this is from the Board of Fire Commissioners. So we're
Right, I
just-
said the email was from you
Yes.
that had a letter from the
Yeah,
commission.
it was
Okay,
from the whole
good.
commission, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Okay,
And I'll just read what's here. Dear North Haven Board of Selectmen, regarding the ordinance to provide a tax abatement for real property taxes for the surviving spouses of police officers and firefighters who died in the line of duty. At the February 20th, 2024 meeting, the Fire Commission discussed the qualifying language in the proposed referenced ordinance. While we agree with the sentiment of the ordinance, the proposed language will limit the number of firefighters eligible to receive the benefit. The language provides a definition of line of duty death, which excludes deaths that could have occurred while not on duty. At the last Board of Selectmen meeting, it was suggested that a licensed medical professional should make this determination, certifying that death could not have occurred off duty. Our concern with this language is that it displays a lack of understanding of the occupational risks that firefighters face while doing their job. We have attached a copy of the National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety's report that discusses the risks firefighters face from cardiovascular events because of their occupation. The public generally views the risk a firefighter faces as being trapped in a burning building, but the occupational hazards go much deeper. The NIOSH report states the following statements, which were pulled directly from the report. Sudden cardiac arrest is the most common cause of firefighter mortality. 44% of on-duty firefighter fatalities during the 10-year period of 1995 to 2004 were due to sudden cardiac death. Risks for firefighters are a combination of personal and workplace factors. Firefighters are exposed to workplace hazards that are associated with adverse cardiovascular outcomes. Workplace exposure to carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, and particulate matter result in injury to the heart and cardiovascular system. Increased heart rate and heavy physical exertion can trigger a sudden cardiac event while performing the duties of a firefighter. This is particularly true when staffing is not adequate to meet the demands of fire suppression or when the members of the department are obligated to work multiple long shifts due to staffing limitations. Heat stress and the impact of rapid changes in temperature can also play a role in sudden cardiac events of firefighters. Our brave firefighters are at risk for cardiac events on the job because of the work they do, and we should not minimize their sacrifice because a line of duty death does not occur in the matter that is exclusively attributed to a fire. In addition, there is language that excludes deaths that occur while traveling to and from work. Once again, we believe this language was added without consideration for the work that firefighters and police officers face as a result of their commitment to serving our community. When hurricanes, snowstorms, and travel hazards occur, most residents have the luxury of sheltering at home. This is not the case for our first responders. They travel out of their homes to serve the community while the rest of us take shelter. To exclude members of the fire and police department who may have had an accident because they are responding to the call of duty limits the intent of the ordinance. Please consider delaying your vote so that you have the opportunity to talk with the Fire Commission and Police Commission, as well as members of the department. This will allow you to have a full understanding of the impact of the language on first responders and their families. Thank you. This is from, again, the whole commission.
Okay. If you could stay there, I'd like to, if I may.
Absolutely. Go right ahead,
Bill,
yeah.
you can join in, make some comments about the letter. You have it there.
Yeah.
First, I just want to say that I know your two primary concerns are the line of duty issue and the travel back and forth from work. But I would also like to just give a little background. The first draft that we had of this ordinance, which was very similar to the draft from the town of Groton, did not include volunteer firefighters, and it did not include firefighters that live in North Haven but work in fire departments in other towns. There are many North Haven residents who work in other fire departments. And Bill and I almost immediately, and Mike agreed immediately to include the veterans, which is very important to me, especially, and also to include firefighters that work in other towns. I could tell you there are many ordinances. Hold on one second. Greenwich, for one, only allows the abatement for members of the Greenwich Fire and Police Department. Same with Cromwell. They must be employed by the town. So immediately we took 2 steps to expand eligibility widely. Now, of course, North Haven firefighters, or I should say employees of the North Haven Fire Department and employees of the North Haven Police Department who don't live in North Haven cannot benefit from this ordinance. You understand that?
Right, because they don't, there's no way to. for
Yeah,
them to
we
get
can't
abate their
taxes in other
someplace
towns.
else, absolutely,
Unless,
right.
hopefully they live in towns that have this ordinance. But anyway, so we could only control residents of the town. So I just want you to know that one of the first things that we did in January was we vastly expanded eligibility by including volunteers and by including residents of North Haven who work for other towns. We did not have a requirement, as many towns do, that they not only live in North Haven, they not only live in the town, but that they work for that town department. So we've expanded it. Now, as far as your quote, not yours personally, but the quote you read in the third paragraph, this language provides a definition of line of duty death. You have a quote, but it's not a quote. It's words are different and words are left out. It says excludes deaths that could have likely occurred while not on duty.
I pulled that from the copy, so I didn't get the copy. I know you guys at the last meeting had some language that was changed. I don't have that.
This language was in all three drafts.
There was specifically something that said excludes deaths that could have likely occurred while not on duty. That's where I pulled that from.
Well, the same language was in all three drafts, and that's not quite what it says. It says that, and I'll read it, it's always said this, it does not include deaths that could just have likely occurred while not on duty. The word just is left out, and that's very important because it's very clear from that word, there's a clear implication of an equality of probability. And that's what it means. And every one of these other ordinances has that exact language, that line of duty does not include deaths that could just have likely occurred while not on duty. That's far different from likely not on duty, because later you say here, you're upset about.
Well, first, Sally,
the fire commission.
I just want to stop you for a second, because
Yeah.
this wasn't written to say we're upset. It was, we are bringing up a concern.
Okay.
And just as likely versus likely, the fact is, there was the discussion, and again, I don't have the updated language, was that a medical professional will have to certify that is the case. And so I think on the part of the commission, there is a concern that a medical professional won't necessarily be able to do that, and a line of duty death is determined, in my understanding, was through the department. So,
Okay.
and so we just wanted to throw out there that the cardiovascular events that occur while firefighters are on duty are particular, they're a particular risk because of the work they're doing. And it would be very difficult for a medical professional to say that couldn't just have likely happened someplace else, because it's a cardiovascular event.
I think the word just kind of helps the firefighter. But the letter says that it was suggested that a licensed medical professional make this determination. I'm the one who made the suggestion. And Mr. Frieda and Mr. Piper and Attorney D'Onofrio agreed that that was a good idea. But you have here, it says, to make this determination, certifying that the death could not have occurred off duty. That's not what they would be certifying to. They would be certifying to whether it would be just as likely. Only a doctor can do that.
I know, but I having worked in the medical profession, very few doctors are going to put themselves out there and make that determination. That is not how you decide whether something is a line of duty death. And with some of the information from NIOSH, it's a lot of the reports that they are doing when they look at line of duty deaths. So I don't want to be part of the debate. I just wanted to. I think the fire commission felt it was important to provide some context to the selectmen as you guys are discussing this ordinance and any changes in the language. And as a commission, we had concerns about that particular language, and then the language about the travel. So
Okay,
I
I'll
don't
get
want
to
to
that
be
in
a
a
part of
second.
your discussion.
Yeah,
I
but-
want you guys
but-
to
well,
discuss.
But I think it's important to have a discussion. I mean, there's two fire commissioners here. Why can't we discuss it? But I think that the importance of the language that we have now is we're trying to comply with the statute. Because if we as a town grant a tax abatement to someone, and there's a question about whether it's a line of duty, another taxpayer would have standing to say, what did you do giving it to them? We're trying to comply with the statute by this wording, and I think that's why Attorney D'Onofrio was so quick to put it in there, because it's in every other statute, every other ordinance, and why the medical opinion would be beneficial to confirm that the statute is complied with. That's why I started my introduction with quoting from the statute, because the statute
Does the
determines.
does the statute state that a medical profession has to determine that a
No, but it
firefighter dies
says,
in
it
the
says
line
that
of
the
duty?
fire, that the death has to
Occur
occur
in the
in the
line-
performance of duty.
Right.
In the line of duty.
In the line of duty, correct.
So-
So we're only talking about the fact that once a death has been determined to be in the line of duty, that second piece of that a medical professional needs to certify that it couldn't just as likely have occurred someplace else when it's already been determined that's a line of duty death. That is what the objection of the commission is. Not that it's, of course, it needs to be a line of duty death, and we were never questioning that.
Right.
So the question is whether you want to add that extra burden of having a medical professional determine that it could not just have likely have happened someplace else. Because I think coming from the medical profession, you're going to have a very hard time getting a medical professional to certify that. It's just, in terms of liability and risk for the medical professional, very few are going to do that. So, if it's been determined it's a line of duty death,
Well,
we
there's-
as a commission felt that if it was, once it's determined that it's a line of duty death, that should satisfy that it's a line of duty death.
Okay.
And the travel to and from work in some instances would be considered a line of duty death, because if you are having to travel and you're, coming in a hurricane and, a tree falls on your car, is that not a line of duty death? In our opinions, it is, and we just wanted to bring that out as a point to think about, because it's very specific about the travel to and from work. And I do think that there are many conditions in which firefighters and police officers are out there traveling as a part of their trying to get to where they need to be. And
Yeah,
it's-
lots of
yeah.
employees, public works people, doctors, nurses,
But this
emergency
isn't about,
technicians.
it's not about
Yeah,
all of
but
those
lots
other
of
people.
people have to travel, but it's only going from home to the station in your personal vehicle. That's travel that's not included. And again, it's not included in every ordinance that there is.
Again,
that I've seen.
we just wanted to raise that as a concern.
Right. I don't see how a death that occurs on your way to work, in your own car, on your way to work, is a line of duty death, just as workers' comp doesn't pay workers' comp benefits for traveling to and from work.
Again, you'd still have to have the first part of that, is it would have to have been deemed of line of duty death, and that may, in certain instances, it's clearly not going to be considered a line of duty death. In some instances, it might be. But, so having that language in there, someone could have, their death could have been considered a line of duty death, and because of the specificness in this ordinance about the travel, it may not allow them to qualify, or their spouse to qualify for this benefit. So again, it was just, a couple of points when we were reading
Right,
the
but-
ordinance that we wanted to bring up as concerns.
Right, okay, well, again, every ordinance has that language in there. Again, workers' comp doesn't cover travel to and from work. Obviously, if they're at work and they're traveling on a call and something happens, they get in a car accident on the way to a call, that's covered. But just leaving home and in your car and going to work, that is
If
not.
if you're in the middle of a hurricane or a snowstorm and you're having to leave your home, that's, and then once again, I think it's, if it's
I don't
determined.
understand why the weather matters.
Because most of us don't have to leave in order to go serve the community. And if the point is that it's with a line of duty death, they would only qualify if it's a line of duty death, and if it was determined that. So again, the language, we were concerned that it sort of
Okay.
ignored the fact that, very different than workman's comp or anything like that. It ignores the fact of the risks that, our first responders go through on a regular basis.
Right.
And we didn't present this so that we would be part of your debate. We just wanted to present,
Well-
this is the concern and the conversation that occurred at the fire commission, and we want you to just consider it as you're making your decision.
Well, we are just calling this to the town meeting, and you could make these arguments at the
Absolutely.
town meeting. But you wrote to us today about your concerns, and I spent a lot of time reviewing every word of the letter from the fire commission, and I'm just trying to respond to it, that we did take a lot of steps expanding eligibility, and that the things that you're concerned about are pretty standard for good reason to comply with the statute, because.
Well, I don't
any-
think it's complying with the statute. Once you get to a line of duty death, then you're complying with the statute. Those two pieces are
Yes.
to limit eligibility.
But
They-
travel to and from work is not considered a line of duty death.
Well,
That's
you
what I'm
don't,
saying.
I mean, I think that it would
Yeah.
be based on the circumstances, and all we were saying is that if you add that exclusionary language in, that even if it was for some reason considered a line of duty death, that particular family would not have the benefit. And so, if you left it out, you're still gonna be following the statute. It's still only gonna be in the cases of a line of duty death. But at least you're not then limiting something that if it was determined that it was a line of duty death, that family didn't get to benefit from the
So are you
abatement.
saying all but it's
No,
not
it
all travel?
has to be a line of duty death. So if it is.
So what's the difference between travel to work that's not line of duty and travel to work that is line of duty?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't make the determination of it being a line of duty death. I believe that the line of duty deaths are determined by the department, and I believe it's usually the chief. So when they make that determination, if there are circumstances, and I personally can see some circumstances in which driving from your house to work and having, in very hazardous conditions could lead to something being considered a line of duty death.
It's not
but
really
that
in the
would-
line of duty, it's because of the kind of job you have that you are making that trip in bad weather.
Well, so then that's the conversation that you have.
Okay.
If a line of duty death has been determined, then that's the conversation that you have to discuss whether that should be or not. But that's not the point. I mean, I think the point is just to consider, first of all, it always has to be determined that it's a line of duty death. And these other pieces are creating exclusionary language that may prevent some officers or firefighters who have had a determination that it's a line of duty death. Would prevent them from then, their family from getting
Can I
their
ask a
tax
question?
abatement.
Okay, and I just had one more problem, one more concern. You said, and we should not minimize their sacrifice because a line of duty death did not occur in a manner that can be exclusively attributed to a fire. There's nothing in the ordinance that says it has to be a line of duty death attributed to a fire. There are many other duties listed.
Again, I think when we were, it was giving
Okay.
the example of this is the way I think most people attribute when someone, a firefighter has a line of duty death, it is the way that most people think about that they got, that they were injured in the fire, and that's
Yeah,
how they
but-
died. And
But our
there are.
ordinance doesn't say that. It defines fire duties far
But
more
you're
broadly.
excluding one of the main things that, one of a major cause of death, an on-duty death, which is the cardiovascular piece. So that was the point,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
Ms. Cole, can I
Yeah.
ask you a
Yep.
question?
Yes.
I just want to refer to the last sentence of your last paragraph. It reads that, please consider delaying your vote. Are you saying, please consider delaying your vote to bring it to a town meeting? Is that what you're asking for?
No, I think we were asking really to have, to try to iron out the language, yes, before it goes to the town meeting, with those concerns in place. And, it was just a request of the commission to consider that those two pieces of the language are what we felt was problematic. I think the intent, and I believe the commission all believes that it's a great ordinance, and that I think most of the town would support it, but there was concern in the language. So
Yes.
we were
Okay.
hoping that you would consider those points and possibly delay, or look at maybe taking out some of the language that's currently in there before it goes to a town meeting. I mean, given the fact that we only provided this information, last night, and actually, Mr. Piper only got it this morning because I didn't have his email, but, we didn't know whether you'd want to, change anything in the language since you've talked about it for the last couple of months. So it was just, again, a suggestion about trying to get the language, in a manner that would be beneficial before the town meeting.
Right. Well, I think the ordinance is well overdue, and I hope everyone supports it. And are you pleased with the two changes that we made from the standard model ordinance by including volunteers and by including North Haven residents who don't work specifically for North Haven? Are you pleased with those expansions of eligibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are fine. I mean, when our commission talks about firefighters, we don't necessarily separate those that are volunteers and those that are career, because they are all firefighters.
Right.
So in my mind, if I had read that ordinance, I would have considered them all firefighters and never would have considered, well, you have to be a paid firefighter.
Well, the
So-
original ordinance, which we took from another town, said paid.
Paid,
So
said
that's
paid.
why
Okay.
it was crucial to me that we put in the volunteer language.
Yep.
And again, there's about half of the municipalities that have these ordinances restricted only to those that work for their town. And I thought that was way too restrictive, that we have to protect firefighters and police officers that live in town but perhaps work elsewhere,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
Bristol.
That's why we also added school resource officers as well for police.
And we also added in state police agency to cover state police. So we added quite a bit more than the standard, so I was.
Right, I was just
yeah.
I think the commission
Okay.
was hoping that you would remove a little bit of the language that excludes.
Well, you consider restrictive language, okay? Thank you.
Bill, anything on your side?
Yeah, did the commission actually look at the statute?
We looked at what the ordinance was. We didn't look at the particular statute, but that statute, there's nothing in that statute that says this language needs to be there.
See, again, it's very, it says who dies while in the performance of such officers, firefighters, or technicians' duties.
Right, so, I mean,
So I think that was the purpose that Sally put as determined by a licensed medical professional, when it may not be in the performance of such officers, firefighters, or technicians' duties. I can think of situations where those things can happen on duty, but not in the performance of duty.
I mean, I would think that if I was sitting in your shoes, I would want to have a little more information on that, because, you know, on how a line of duty death is determined, because once you say it's a line of duty death, once it's been determined, going to a medical professional and then having them say, yes, it is, or no, it's not, even though it was already determined, again, you're now excluding people that have been already, the determination has already been made. So it wouldn't be made that it's a line of duty death if it wasn't if they weren't performing their duties at the time.
So are you making an argument that everything, when you're on duty, everything that occurs is line of duty?
No, and again, I don't believe that we were suggesting that we should be making determination, that how the line of duty death determination happens that already answers the question on whether someone has a line of duty death and whether it has occurred while they're performing their duties. Adding this other medical piece is then restricting it, but.
I just think that a medical professional is the best person to make the determination.
And unfortunately, I don't know that they're going to do that.
They're not certifying. It doesn't, statute, our ordinance doesn't say certifying. It says make the determination that it's a line of death duty, line of death.
Coroner doesn't determine whether something is a line of duty death. They determine
Cause of
what
death.
the cause of death.
Yep, yeah. Even though we, our motion, no, even though our motion was mentioned, Ms. Caldwell, we have another fire commissioner, so I don't think there's any objection to extending
no
the
objection.
microphone to you, Commissioner Brown.
I must say, this is the first time I have ever been at a podium here. I'd like to know.
I'd have to, just for the record, you're in the viewing audience.
Pat Brown, Elm Street, a resident of North Haven. I'd
Pat.
like to know what you think a physician would do in terms of determining the cause of death. What do you anticipate?
Whatever physicians do. I'm not a physician. That's exactly why I suggested that a physician make the determination that it was a line of duty death. Because I thought that the language that's in here about would just as likely occurred is a difficult one, and that's in every statute, every ordinance that I've seen, and I've looked at quite a few. To make that determination, it just seemed appropriate for a medical professional to make that determination.
And that would be based on a report from the coroner about
Well, the facts and circumstances from the department, what he or she was doing at the time,
yes.
all of the facts and circumstances, not just the cause of death.
Well, one of the
There's a difference between cause of death and line of duty.
Yes.
So it just seems appropriate for a physician to make that determination. I actually think it helps make eligibility, but that's.
Well, my thought is not everyone would want an autopsy. So if you wanted medical information from a coroner, that might be difficult to get.
Well, it doesn't say coroner, it says medical professional, but I think I understand what your concerns are,
Okay. All right, thank you.
and I hope you understand we're trying to comply with the statute.
Yes.
I'll just pose this question to my esteemed colleagues. Do you want to allow public comment to continue on this particular item, or you want to move on with the agenda?
No?
You want to hear from some of the other residents here on this particular issue?
Of course, if other people have comments, I'd like.
All right,
Why
Mr.
not?
Richards.
Since
Yes.
they're kind enough to come tonight, I
Yes.
think we should give anybody
Sure.
the opportunity to comment. That's it.
Bill Richards, North Avenue. Being a son of a volunteer firefighter, in my younger days, that did get hit on Washington Avenue directing traffic, I think it's a great bill, all right, or tax abatement. And what I do see is, there seems to be an awful lot of questions on this between the fire commissioners here tonight, and I'm wondering how the police department is reacting to this also. And then have they all been together in a meeting to sort of get together all in the same room at one time so that we could identify the differences of what's being brought up so far tonight?
No, the police department, the rank and file, have not been involved with this. I think the police chief's position would be let the board make their decision, bring it to the town meeting if we're going to do that, and let the public listen and comment. That's what I think the police chief would say.
Yeah, and the other thing is, do we still have fire police?
No.
They're gone now. We have the CERT team. They go south.
Right.
Now, are they covered in something like this also?
They're not in there, no. Maybe
All right,
that's-
so they're not in it.
They're not
no,
employees.
They're not employees, right, they're volunteers. But then again.
But they're not.
Wouldn't meet
but
the statute.
We didn't meet the statute, right?
They wouldn't, no.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is in there, if the spouse gets remarried again, is there something in there that the abatement for the taxes stops at that point?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
so we do have that, all right. And the other thing is, will there be a copy available for the public to see prior to the meeting at the high school?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Enough
be-
time?
It'll be available at the clerk's office and it'll be online.
Right. Yeah.
So we will have it online, all right.
Sure.
All right, it's a great thing, because, I could have been one of the, and my family could have been in one of the situations where, I lost somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm backing it up 100%. But just seems like the fine detail, all right, needs to be tweaked a little bit, possibly. That's why I like to see, that's why I like to see a copy before the meeting, and I'm sure a lot of other people would too, so.
Right, I think it's a great thing too, and we've tried to tweak it, we've tweaked it a few times, and we've expanded eligibility in the couple of areas that I mentioned, but
Right.
obviously we have some legitimate concerns that some fire commissioners feel strongly about, and I think that they could raise those concerns at the town meeting for discussion, because this really is up to the legislative body.
Yeah, the legislative body is the town meeting bill, so.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
So,
And so, in other words, we have a copy to look at
yes.
available prior to the meeting that
Right.
night.
And in the end, at the town meeting, after the residents review it, each person may or may not come up and voice their opinion, but then that document will be the one that's voted on. It'll be either for it or against it.
Okay, so if, in other words, it's a yes or no on that document that came out that night you're voting on?
Yeah, whatever
Prior-
document goes to that town meeting that you're gonna see online, Bill, or you pick up here at Town Hall, that's gonna be the document voted on.
All right, now, how about if somebody comes up with see something outstanding where it should be changed? It's very, very strangely needs to be
Well,
tweaked out a little bit.
what I think would unfold is the moderator may say there could be a motion to table, or there could be a motion to call the vote, despite the difference of opinions among the town residents.
Right, because I remember in some of the meetings, different meetings, you'll go back and readjust something after that meeting to make a change on it.
Yeah.
If people.
Well, how do you see that, Val? That's a valid question. How do you see that, Sally? I mean, because it could end up that way. If there's a lot of different opinions and people are saying, we think, it should be tabled, it won't be my decision. It'll be the moderator's decision to
Right.
say, all right, here's what we're gonna do. So,
I think we'd have to restructure.
yeah, we'll have Tom come up too.
Rewrite the ordinance.
Right.
Yeah, and the only other thing I brought up to Val earlier tonight was, that's on the same night as the Wetlands Commission meeting, the 27th of the month.
Is it, Tom?
It is. The problem was, I really wanted the Tuesday. Jeff D'Onofrio was not available on the Tuesday. Then I looked at another date, and you weren't available. Then I looked at another date, the high school wasn't available. It was the only one I could come up with.
That's a problem. That's a problem. Because that's going to be a heavily attended meeting at the wetlands, so.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's hear from Tom White. Bill, are you concluded? Because Tom had his hand up.
Yeah,
All right,
I'm
thank you
good.
for your comments.
Thanks, Mike.
Tom, come on up.
I was just going to give you another perspective. I don't know if you remember Officer Robert Fumiati from
Yes,
New Haven.
I do.
That was shot
Yep.
in 2001 in the face when he was exiting a raid van for narcotics. Well, he went through a period of recovery and eventually returned back to work for the PD. And all of us, or most of us that worked with him, noticed the trauma from that initial injury. And he later, during the period after he succumbed to his, we felt it was directly related to that injury in 2007, a medical professional weighed in at one point and determined, he made a determination that it was not a line of duty death. And later on, that decision was reversed. So his family, his spouse, his family was entitled to all the benefits that came with that. So my feeling is, when you bring in a medical professional, it could go either way. I think my recommendation is to leave it with the Board of Fire Commissioners. It's simpler to make that determination with the professionals in the fire department that know fire science and all that's involved to make a more accurate determination. A medical professional is only going to come from the medical side of things and not have the fire science expertise as part of that. I think it's simpler to keep it with the Fire Commission, and it can be still challenged probably at that level when that decision is made, but it makes it less complicated, because if an outside person comes in, it could still be litigated and open it up much further.
In your example, when the initial medical determination was that it was not in the line of duty, you said it got reversed.
It got reversed.
Reversed by what entity?
It ended up being reversed by, I think it was not only, the city recognized it anyway, but it more weighed into his recognition at the Law Enforcement Memorial in Washington. That decision by the medical professional weighed in more there, probably at the time. But I could see how.
My question is, was it reversed by another medical professional or by a judge?
No, it was reversed by the police department and the city recognizing what they felt were, and it was testimony from those involved. We all saw he had trauma from the injuries. It was obvious to us.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Right, thank you.
Mary White.
I just wanted to first add to what Tom was saying. The bullet remained in his body. And so it was pretty shocking when the medical professional said, oh, it was the bullet that changed him and eventually killed him by being in his body. Yeah. So that's what a doctor could do. You see what I'm saying? So I agree, and I say that a doctor is not a fire professional or a police professional, and so they're not going to take those concepts into consideration. I had a concern relative to the travel, because we were talking about, Jenny was talking about, well, if there's some type of an event, a weather event or something, or an emergency, and a fire personnel is being called in and dies on the way in. You know, I think that, you know, it should be considered. They wouldn't, we're home, we're safe, and they wouldn't be on the road to go on their way to their job if it wasn't for that event. So I definitely agree with what she's talking about. But I have another one, which is the opposite, which is coming from work. So here's an example. What if we have a firefighter who's working, say, maybe a double shift, there's short staff, and in the course of working the shift, there's maybe one fire or big event, very traumatic, very stressful. They're exhausted, and finally the shift, let's say he's working 2 shifts or whatever, and he gets in, his shift is finally over, it's time to go home, you know. He gets in the car, and on the way home has a heart attack from the stress for that particular fire. We don't know if it was a chemical place or whatever. And this scenario about the doctor coming in, it seems like, well, you've got the coroner, you've got the fire professionals, and, you know, I'm concerned, you know, that this individual, their family, would not get the benefit because he wasn't physically on the job. He was, but his body became very stressed. Maybe he inhaled chemicals or something, and it just caused him to have this heart attack on the way home. So it sounds like he would be excluded. So I just think that there's, I don't think it's ready to go to a town meeting, to be honest with you. I really think there should be more discussion and really think about, you have to think about these scenarios, because if you just, it seems like it's so narrow, you know what I mean? And I just worry that you have to think about what are some other examples that could possibly happen, and then the way it's written, it's possible that the family wouldn't have the benefit.
So that's where I think the statute areas create some of that language in the other ordinances, where they talk about in the performance of such officers, firefighters, or technicians' duties. So, you know, so that's kind of, you know, so coming to and from work, you know, I'd want to, but is it really performance of duties coming to and from work? Or even somebody falling asleep, you know, even if, you know, just because he worked a double shift, like in your scenario, you fell asleep coming home. You know, is that an after effect of, I think as Tom was saying, a performance of your duties? Which you can make, I can make an argument the other way as well.
Well, it would be up to the department officials to determine if it was
Except he's not,
in the line of duty.
we should be paying him for driving to and from work.
Let's hear from Mr.
So
Katz.
it becomes tough.
Mr.
Sherman
Katz.
Katz, Sherwood Drive. First question, can this be expanded to cover military people killed in the line of duty that live in our town?
No.
It cannot
Because
be.
not under this statute.
No, none of this.
Is there a statute where it can be covered?
Not to our knowledge, Sherman.
Okay,
No.
so that,
We looked for that.
Yeah, you did.
so that would be a whole new legislature.
Especially, you know, for something that, you think there'd be one for the National Guard and Reserves too. I mean,
Well,
or, you know, even if it wasn't active duty, somebody who's called to active
These
duty.
people in Afghanistan that was in much danger as a fireman or a policeman,
Right.
at least. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Mrs. Barrett.
I think you left out. You're the only one. Nancy Barrett, Crestview Drive. So it seems to me that the crux of the issue here, as it pertains to both the police and the fire department, is the role that both environmental factors as well as genetics and lifestyle choices play in their influence on the cardiovascular system and can contribute to a sudden cardiovascular death. So again, so there's this combination of personal and workplace factors. And again, the personal factors include contributions from inherited genetics. What I mean by lifestyle choices are sleep, diet, weight, activity level, etc. And so we should not automatically assume that a sudden, non-traumatic firefighter or police death is the result of the work that they do. I think that it is the responsibility of a trained professional that is studied and gone through many, many years of training that specifically focuses on cardiovascular medicine to ultimately determine that. And they do so not just by looking at an autopsy result or by examining the body in general, but also looking at the individual's medical history and the family's medical history as well. So I think that's very important, and I think that needs to be established by a trained medical professional. Having said that, I think it is important for the town to also have an understanding of what are the criteria that the fire or police chief might use to determine a death in the line of duty. It seems to be defined by this Connecticut statute, but if there are a specific set of criteria that they go through in establishing that, I think that it would be certainly appropriate for the people to be aware of that. And in terms of deaths while commuting to and from work, again, I think the point was made before that that can occur to anyone, and they can either be due to accidents or acute or chronic illness, and quite honestly, those are typically covered by life insurance. And fire and police officers are not the only people that have to brave inclement weather to serve the needs of others. We certainly have doctors and nurses that experience incredible trauma in the types of work that they do that strains their cardiovascular system. They're certainly very, very fatigued, and they certainly could be exposed to those dangerous situations as well. And I think also we can't forget our animal control officers as well as our public works employees who are out there plowing our streets and roads at all hours of the day and night in all kinds of very dangerous conditions. And again, this death benefit is not extended to them. So I think that this benefit should only apply to those deaths that occur in the line of duty as defined by the Connecticut state statute. And I think that is something that we should all be in a consensus about. So thank you. That's all I have to say on this.
Thank you. We have actually two issues here.
We have two issues, right?
Whether we want to put more thought into the draft before going to the town meeting with it, but also the date.
Yeah, the date. That once that was just identified, and I'm going to pose this question to my colleagues here.
Yeah.
These are two very important issues, wetlands and this issue, that I think you would see a lot of people come out.
Right.
Are we disenfranchising many residents who have to pick and choose then which meeting they go to? That's my concern right now.
Yeah, I could see that. So we're going to have to make a date in April. Oh, you already got the calendar out.
Well, I'm just looking, so we were proposing the Wednesday, the 27th. The Board of Selectmen will be reconvening and meeting again just a week later on the 4th of April. So if you want to table it
We'll
now,
table it and call it
and I
at
can
that
look
time.
for other dates further in the month of April
Yeah.
at the high school.
Right.
And you can call it at the April meeting.
Because even in this smaller crowd here, I'm sure that both Tom and Mary White would want to go to wetlands, but would want to come to this meeting. Bill Richards would be another one, right? Mary and Tom, right? So I think the fair way to do this is not have the residents pick and choose what meeting They're both very important meetings.
Right, and back to the first issue is, we just got this letter of concerns from the Fire Commission yesterday.
Yep.
Well, at 11:30 last night.
That's yesterday to me.
Okay. I didn't see it till today. So, you know, and in deference to the Fire Commission, I took a big chunk out of my already busy day to read it and study it and think about it and review my stack of other ordinances. So not only from the date problem, but it'll also give a little more time to digest the concerns, although I still feel strongly that our third draft, which was well thought out and debated here,
Yes, it was.
is
Yep.
solid. You had your meeting February 20th. A little sooner with your concerns would have been nicer. But, we're all very busy people, so I understand that. You're a very busy person. I know you're a very busy person. So, I think for both reasons, I'll make a motion
All right.
to table items 12 and 13 till our next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Is there a second?
A second.
In the discussion, I'd like to repeat for the audience, okay, that I support the motion because, once again, for those that aren't aware, we have a very important meeting, inland and wetlands, March 27th. This is a very important topic of discussion. I support this motion because I don't want to have people pick and choose and then be stuck saying, I want to go to that, but I want to go to this. It's not fair to the residents of North Haven. And by doing this, it'll allow us to contemplate some of the things said
Yeah.
tonight.
Yes. And again, this delay, because this will be now the fourth month, should in no way be interpreted as we are determined as a board to, I'm sure we'll all speak at the town meeting, to pass this very important ordinance to help surviving spouses of deserving surviving spouses when there is a tragic a death from a firefighter.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or so this. They're delaying it again, because this is our third time, and the folks that have been watching regularly have heard us talk about it quite a bit. So this is in no way any second guessing. We're determined to get this benefit for our firefighters and our police officers who live in North Haven.
This will go to a town meeting, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
This is going to go to a town meeting, we commit and we guarantee you. But this other thing that was brought to our attention tonight has caused us to pause because that meeting, the wetlands meeting, is critically important, as is this meeting. Can't have them on the same night.
Right. So that ends our discussion.
We're good.
Did we vote on the motion?
Okay,
Not,
no.
you made a motion, I
Motion,
believe Bill
second.
second.
Yep.
Motion, second, we had the discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, let's continue with the,
The agenda.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Number 14.
Number 14. I'll do that. What is it? Oh, okay. To consider and act upon a resolution authorizing the sale and disposal of a public works vehicle. I'll make a motion, resolved that the town of North Haven authorize the auction and disposal of the following surplus Department of Public Works vehicle. The Director of Procurement and Administration, Rich Monaco, is authorized to determine acceptable bid offers and to take said vehicle to alternate auction locations. All revenue received will return to the town's general fund, and this concerns a 2008 Peterbilt 320-32 CY rear load refuge truck, VIN number 3BPCL5OX69F719213. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
I think it's actually 5-0,
Okay.
but I'll second that motion.
All right.
What'd I say, 5-0?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oops.
I give Sally credit for reading that.
All right.
But I'll second the
Okay.
resolution.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Next.
Next item on the agenda is bond releases. First one, I'll make a motion for approval of the release of the bond on number P21-11, 33 Defco Park Road. Amount of original bond, $3,500. Current balance of bond, $3,500. Release the entire bond balance of $3,500 with a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll second. I reviewed the planning and zoning documentation, so I wholeheartedly second this release.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I'll make a motion for the release of the bond for item P22-18, 22 Broadway. Amount of original bond, $2,500. Current balance of bond, $2,500. Release the entire bond balance of $2,500 with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And along the same lines, I'll second that bond release.
All right.
Motion to release that bond.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion for the property tax refunds in item 16 listed in our agenda.
I'll second Sally's motion for those refunds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 17, the next regularly scheduled meeting of this board will be Thursday, April 4th at 6:30 here at the top floor of Memorial Town Hall. We are now at the point of additional public comment. Mary White.
Mary White, Summer Lane. So I'm here again to share some information and to make a request. So first, the request, you've heard the date by now, but I'm going to repeat it. So I'm going to ask residents to please attend the March 27th Inland Wetlands Commission meeting at 7 p.m. at the Recreation Center. At this time, deliberations will occur on the special permit to conduct regulated activity and a site plan referral for the fill permit concerning 250 Universal Drive. Many people left the February 28th meeting before 10 o'clock, and so they did not know the commission decided to deliberate on March 27th. So as a reminder, this is for filling the site with contaminated materials, 600,000 cubic yards, and to fill in and destroy wetlands number 16, which is 2,134 square feet. Its buffers and impact 4.1 acres of wetland upland review areas. This proposal will have a negative and significant impact on wetlands and water courses. Shame on the state for allowing orders of violation on this property to be outstanding for approximately 40 years. Here is some additional information relative to the allowed BUD material. So BUD stands for Beneficial Use Determination. This means material that has some level of contamination. So what are those? Asphalt, bricks, ceramic tile, casting sand, recycled glass, street sweepings, catch basin clean out, New Haven Harbor dredging materials, and seawater sediment. The commission has no control over what the contaminated material will be. Testing for the BUD material must be done to check for acceptable levels. So all these things can be in this contaminated material, but they have to be at acceptable levels for an industrial site. Petroleum, arsenic, barium, cadmium, chromium, copper, lead, mercury, nickel, selenium, silver, zinc, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, pesticides, PFAS. The commission has no control over the testing. The commission has to trust the applicant. They will be selecting the contaminated material. They have to trust the generators of the contaminated fill, and they have to trust Connecticut DEEP. So there's an intervener for this application. Her name is Nancy Alderman, and she stated, quote, "The Commissioner of Deep can change the amount of contaminants at any time. So the levels stated in the application in the BUD can be increased," close quote. The intervener also gave us a visual. What does 600,000 cubic yards of contaminated fill look like? Take a football field, add the 600,000 cubic yards of fill, you get a building 37 stories high. More information on the delivery of the 600,000 cubic yards of contaminated material. It will be 6 days a week, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that you have 29,300 delivery trucks. That's the number that they gave. They said four or so an hour. I-91 North, exit 9, but you have to consider the return trip. So 29,300 delivery trucks returning from the site, I-91 South, exit 9. And this will be taking place for 2 or 3 years. Some of us do not see this math working out. So relative to the humps on the property, which I mentioned last month, there's a 20-foot hump, 10-foot humps, 5-foot humps. They are staying. The smaller ones will be filled up to match the 20-foot hump. We still don't know what's in the humps. There could be nuclear material in there. We don't know. We will not find out. And we don't even know if they'll put monitors in the humps. So why do they need so much fill? Why do they need this 600,000 cubic yards? Because they want to raise the site to 20 feet above sea level to level the site. The site has a high water table, flooding, and much groundwater. They must raise the site so high to be many feet away from all that water. Here is a photo of the site from 1934. The purple is the water. And next to it is a photo from 1990 showing how the water was filled in with the industrial waste, the thousands of creosote drums, the solid waste, the railroad cars, the creosote railroad ties, tires, cars, metal, household waste, etc. So now here is a map. Tom, you got the map? Showing the fill stages, because some people think that this is just to fill in the wetlands. I guess you could show them. If you look on that map, you'll see that the green coloring, that represents the fill year 1. The yellow is fill for year 2, and the top north of the property is cutting year 3. The cleanest fill is there. They will cut down the 10-foot height of that area by 4 feet, and they will move that clean fill to New Haven. When they fill the site with unknown contaminated fill, they will be increasing the velocity of discharge off the slopes. The wetlands will receive runoff at an unknown rate. Wetlands will receive pollutants from the unknown fill. There will be leaching into the wetlands. They are only proposing to do some light mitigation to 3 of the 17 wetlands, and that is wetlands 5, 6, and 7. But they're going to alter the site by bringing in the 600,000 cubic yards of unknown contaminated fill material. So it's unknown the damage that they will do, what kind of pollutants they will put in the water and in the ground. If they bring in pure sand, there'll be a lot of absorption. If they bring in silt and clay, 90% of that water is going to go down right into the wetlands. So aside from 5, 6, and 7 mitigation, all the waste and contaminating the hazardous materials and chemicals, that's all going to remain on the site. So this is really a cover-up plan, not a cleanup plan. So the EPA, is the EPA cleanup of the PCBs identified on the site happening first? No. So Tom, if you flip that
maybe
map.
if you the camera is, it's on Mary, it's on the podium. Maybe if you put it on the top of the podium. and, and held it up higher, Mary could then point to.
Oh,
And I think he might be able to get that on camera if other people wanted
Yeah,
to
okay,
say.
so this green represents year one of the fill material, because I wanted to have this map just to identify that the whole site is gonna be filled in,
So
not
now I
just
think at
the
least it's,
15.
at
Yes.
least the audience can
Yes,
see, I think, what you're.
Thank you. And then
what
this
you're pointing
is,
out.
this is the yellow for year two, and then this is the area over here where they're gonna be cutting that out. And that's the northern part of the property. The Quinnipiac River actually touches that part of the property right over there. And also want to mention the blue, when you see the blue areas, those are the wetlands. And you see, so this is wetland 6 right here. This is wetland 5, that circle there, and then this is wetland 7. So these are the only ones that they will be doing some mitigation to. And I wanted to show the PCBs, those areas, so those are deadly levels that have been identified on the property, and they have to be dug out. So wetland 17, it's hard to see, but right over here, wherever there's red, so this is really wetland 17. They known as the chugging eddies or wetlands. And so that has to be dug out, but there's also red over here. So I just wanted to point that out, but that's gonna happen like in the future. They wanna fill first. All right, so you could lower that. Thanks. Let's see, what did I say? So I think I said that. The wetlands will receive runoff unknown rate. They will see, okay, I did that. Where am I? Hang on one second. Yes, okay, the EPA cleanup. Okay, here I am. So did they test for nuclear material? Because there definitely had been nuclear material that they dealt with down there. But no, they're not testing for that. So did they go out in the spring season and test for vernal pools? No. Did they test the fill material in the New Haven harbor? No. So the intervener objected to undersized and underdesigned anti-tracking apron, which she said is clearly insufficient to remove the hazardous materials from the tires of those 60,000 truck trips to and from the site. So when the trucks leave the site, North Haven roadways will be contaminated by the truck tires. It will either turn into dust, blow away, or wash into the storm sewer systems, and then into the Quinnipiac River. The intervener, she objected to the lack of any specific dust control plans appropriate for the huge project. Lack of dust control can result in dust-filled hazardous materials being blown all over surrounding neighborhoods. The intervener stated toxins emitted from the facility are a threat to public health and the environment, with higher instances of cancer, respiratory symptoms, and congenital defects. Also relative to the proposed facility emissions, Becky Kessler, who works for the Connecticut Coalition for Economic and Environmental Justice, in an opinion column for the New Haven Register said, quote, "We do need to factor in what we don't see, but despite its name, the biogas generated from the digesters doesn't burn any cleaner than regular fuel. Regardless of the source, all these invisible fuels pollute the atmosphere," close quote. The intervener said Eco Park's website says untruths, such as, quote, "No toxic materials are permitted," close quote. The intervener said the applicant filed a BUD, meaning they will use contaminated material. So the intervener was drawing attention to the Eco Park website, the original one, which said Eco Park is a waste incinerator, versus the new website on February 26th, which says Eco Park is a power plant. When she spoke of a 1988 article on the new website, which showed how contaminated the Quinnipiac River was, implying it doesn't matter to use contaminated fill to the North Haven wetlands, this brought up Upjohn and SciTech pouring toxins into the Quinnipiac River, and who stopped Upjohn and who got the $1 million. This is when we all witnessed the applicant yelling and screaming at the intervener, calling her a liar. So he's yelling and screaming at a woman. He's yelling and screaming at a senior citizen. He left the room and continued to yell and scream and call Nancy horrible names, which I won't repeat here, but a hint is 2 words begin with the second and third letter of the alphabet. I'll let you figure it out. So I get it. The applicant disagreed with what was being said, but it is unacceptable for him to lose his temper, yell and scream, and call Nancy terrible names. We must show respect for one another. So I'll end by thanking the board for allowing me to speak, and I'd like to thank the people who attended the February 28th Inland Wetlands Commission meeting, and I'd like to ask once again for the residents to please attend the March 27 Inland Wetlands Commission meeting at 7 o'clock at the Rec Center. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? No.
Nancy Barrett, Crestview Drive. I just have 2 quick questions and then 1 comment I'd like to make. First, regarding the agenda, let's see, back, I think it was agenda item number 11, the appointment of Lou Capola, which I completely support. He's a fabulous person. My only question is, what was the party affiliation of Lori Reynolds?
Republican.
Okay, because it's not here.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that it was a Republican for a Republican. Okay, and secondly, I just wanted to confirm, Mr. Frieda, you are still the Director of Finance for our town. Is that correct?
Well, I oversee the finances, but Rich Monaco has taken on a greater responsibility for me, and so I have a lot of other issues I'm involved with. So, but I oversee everything here.
Right, but
So.
if someone were to ask who's the Director of Finance, it would be you, right?
Well, we're dealing with semantics here, okay? If someone asks, who should I ask a question in finance, they call Rich Monaco. So if someone asks who oversees the finances of this government, it's Mike Frieda. We don't. Titles are irrelevant to us.
Right. It's just that Mr. Piper had referred to Mr. Monaco as the Director of Finance,
Well,
so that's what confused
I was
me.
talking in a more generic.
Right.
Right,
No.
right, so, because
The more-
he's the Director of Procurement and Administration, right?
As opposed
Okay.
to-
I
But
just
he
wanted to confirm that
oversees.
nothing had changed.
Right, but he oversees the finance people in the finance department.
Right,
So.
I understand.
Yeah, to his credit, he's been very involved in the contract negotiations.
Yes,
Which I think.
which makes
Yeah,
sense.
And again, maybe just for, along the same lines, I think we're actually, the contracts haven't even expired yet, and we've actually approved new contracts. We're actually really, as you know from being on the Board of Finance, how quite often the things are being, we finally get the contracts approved years after the contracts expired.
Right, and
So
then
it's actually good to
they're
have
up for
contracts.
renewal 10 minutes later, yeah. No,
And now they're
I
actually
understand.
renewed right at the end of this contract period, and the new contracts will start, July 1st.
Great, so
Which is great.
then we won't have to be doing any estimating, that's great. And my last comment is really just, I'd just like to say that I attended the high school performance of Bye Bye Birdie this last weekend, and I have to say, it was wonderful. It really was just a show of force and a show of talent among our young people in this town, and I was just so delighted to see not only the performers on the stage, but also the performers in the pit orchestra, and certainly the crew that put together the sets and moved things around in between scenes. And most importantly, I'd just like to thank all of the volunteers, both the staff members, the teachers, the staff members, and of course the parents who make a wonderful event like that possible. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone involved.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Very nice.
That's it.
Barry?
I just have one more question. It might have been stated, but I missed it, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating. So regarding the ordinance for the tax abatement, does the state statute include the language requiring a doctor to be involved and determine
No.
the cause of death?
It just says in the performance of duties, and so most of the statutes, including our proposed one, does our best to define line of duty. And so I suggested, and my colleagues agreed, that kind of, if it's, so many of, these unfortunate passings are clear that it's in the line of duty, but sometimes it's not. And so that, in that situation especially, we thought that a medical professional should make the determination.
Okay, and with that, the other towns that have this tax abatement for the line of duty deaths for firemen and police officers, do they also include the requirement having a doctor to determine the cause of death?
Not the cause of death, to determine if it was in line of duty. No, I haven't seen.
also have that?
I haven't seen that, but they all have that language that it does not, line of duty does not include deaths that could just have likely occurred not on duty.
Okay,
All
so-
of them have that exact language.
Okay.
And I suggested that that's a really hard thing to determine unless you're a doctor, and my colleagues agreed. But we're going to relook at that.
Yeah, so because there's pushback with the on the way to work not being covered, and then on the way home not being covered, I think that, so we don't want to deviate, okay? So I think if the other tax abatement ordinances and the statute itself is not requiring this doctor to determine if it's, so you're not saying cause of death, you're saying to determine if
Line of duty.
if it's a line of duty death, I think that it's not necessary, because you have professionals in that field, in the town. I don't know who they, it's the chief, it's the fire commission, I don't know who all these people are that would be involved with determining it. I would be assuming it would be department appropriate officials. So I would say, okay, let's not include that. I understand why, you thought, but I don't think it's necessary, because we have the coroner, so that's going to be the cause of death, and then to determine if it's a line of duty, you're going to go to a non-fire professional, and you're going to go to a non-police professional. I don't think it's necessary, because like you said, more than likely it's going to be obvious that it's a line of duty death.
But there will be other times when it's not. And that's why all of the ordinances have that language excluding, saying that line of duty does not include deaths that could just have likely occurred not on duty.
But the statute itself does not require a doctor.
No.
All the other ordinances that you researched do not include having a doctor to get involved with determining if it's a line of duty death, correct?
No, they all have that
Correct?
language, but they don't have, I haven't seen others requiring a medical determination.
Okay, so
Okay.
I think we should take that into consideration.
Okay. They all have travel to and from home as not included, so we should take that into consideration too.
Well, yes, I'm conceding.
Oh, okay, I wasn't clear.
But I'm pointing out how now.
A give and take.
We're gonna be different with the doctor. I don't think we need to.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
So I could make an argument that we maybe should, based on the arguments that were made tonight, that we should include travel to and from, because it does, it may be, if you felt, if you worked a double shift and fell asleep, I mean, it does seem clearly duty connected, Or
And if the firefighter or police officer is on the way to work and runs a red light and gets in an accident and
or somebody else does.
killed, right, there's other civil,
It wouldn't call that.
there's other civil,
I'll give you another scenario.
He's negligent on the way in.
yeah, there's other civil
I'll give you another
mechanisms.
scenario just to consider. Andrew Faggio was a detective in New Haven, and he worked in the robbery unit. They had a robbery detail scheduled for 5 o'clock in the morning. So he left his house at 4 o'clock in the morning to travel into work. And it was wintertime, it was icy on the road. He's traveling down, I don't know if it was 77 or 79 to get to 95. And as he's going, a registered truck is coming the other way, crosses the center line and goes to his side of the road to drop off newspapers. So he loses control of his car, trying to stop, slides off the road and slides sideways into a tree. And from then on, he has a traumatic brain injury, and the decision was whether or not he should be covered by workers' comp, because is it line of duty? And they eventually realized it was, and that's why I was talking about special circumstances. Normally, he doesn't go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a robbery detail, and he was assigned to it, so he was heading in. So it's a similar situation where you have inclement weather, and it's not, you're normally coming in, it's extraordinary where you're being called in. That's another factor to consider.
Okay.
You know.
See, we've already been, you know, we'd rather be a little bit liberal maybe in our interpretation for exactly those reasons. Like we have already been in terms of not, you know, saying, you know, you don't have to be a North Haven firefighter or policeman, as long as you're a policeman or firefighter and you live in North Haven, if something tragically happens to you in the line of duty, we're going to include you, and nobody else has done that. So, you know, we've already been very, you know, and being, you know, because I think the purpose is to support our police and our fire. So, you know, it's almost like, it may never happen, you know, the unfortunate situation that you just met with that, you know, police officer from New Haven. But, you know, again, of course, as soon as, if we don't, something will happen, unfortunately, so, because it is dangerous in terms of, you know, increasingly dangerous based on weather conditions, just for anybody to get in there. Yeah, I think we're trying to do something good here, and let's not limit it to, you know, unnecessarily, let's put it that way.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
Well,
motion, yes.
Yeah. Before we have a motion to adjourn, I'd like, if you can indulge me, I'd like to just do a quick public service announcement. It's related to our town meeting that we had Monday about early voting. I just wanted to tell people, because our presidential primary is much earlier this year than normal, and it's before our next Board of Selectmen meeting. So I just wanted everyone to know that we do have a presidential primary, which will take place on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024, at all voting locations from the normal 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and schools will be closed that day. So the primary day itself, all voting locations have to be open. However, we are having early voting this year on 4 days, March 26th, March 27th, 28th, and 30th, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. right here at Town Hall. So I just wanted everyone to know that. And just to remind you all that you do have to be registered with a party in Connecticut in order to vote. So if you're unaffiliated, you can't vote in primaries. However, if you are a new voter, meaning you've never registered or you just moved to town, or you are unaffiliated, you still have time to change to a party. And so I would urge you to consult with the registrar, because there's lots of different dates, whether you register online has one set of dates or in person has another set of dates. So if you feel strongly about the primary and you're unaffiliated, there's still time to change. So I just wanted folks to know that. Hopefully this information, which I received from the town clerk today, will be on somewhere.
I believe it's already under the registrar of voters.
Oh, good. But, you know, lots of people watch our meetings, and I just wanted everyone to know that we do have 4 days of early voting all here at Town Hall. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.